Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Short week, but it feels like, I don't know. I feel like I'm playing catch up.
Yes.
Between getting back into a school routine and short week. I don't know. It doesn't feel like Wednesday. It feels, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like holidays are great, but then I almost would prefer to have a full week to get things done.
Yes.
So that's all right.
So today we are chatting about trusts and the importance of funding your trusts. So last week we talked about trusts and what trusts are and why you might want them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't fund your trust, and we'll go over what that is in a minute, you've just paid for a lot of expensive paper.
Yes.
So Lindsay, what's funding your trust?
So when we talk about funding your trust, that is not as scary as it sounds. It is literally transferring your assets from your individual ownership into the ownership of the trust. So there's different ways to do that depending on the type of asset. So for a deed, for example, the deed to your house, we'll prepare a new deed that says, Megan and Lindsay as individuals are now transferring ownership to Megan and Lindsay as co-trustees of our trust. And so that is one way of funding. If you have bank accounts, generally we recommend that you retitle that account so that, Megan doesn't own the account anymore. Megan's trust now owns it. Some banks give you some pushback on that. So there are.
I wouldn't say pushback. Some banks are horrible about that. And if you have if you have one of those banks, find a new bank, right? Yeah. Like at that point, I've got a probate that is going through probate just because the bank refused to retitle the account. The owner actually thought it was titled in the name of the trust. Yeah. And then come to find out it is not. And so we are waiting through the probate process to transfer this account to the trust. Yeah. So if your bank won't let you retitle into the name of your trust or name your trust as a payable on death beneficiary,
get a new bank.
Yeah, we strongly advise get a new bank.
Yeah, and we found that the bigger banks and a lot of the smaller banks that have a trust department, like local bank here, Sandy Spring, they're really good because they have their own trust department. So these banks understand how it works. A lot of the credit unions that maybe are smaller, they don't deal with that, so they just won't do it. But I think most of the major banks, your national banks, will do it. They just might give you a hard time. So that's for bank accounts. For what else is there?
Retirement accounts.
Retirement accounts.
So for retirement accounts, those are a little bit different, right? You want to name, if you're married, you want your spouse to be the primary beneficiary, right? And that most of the time, yeah. Right? If you've got some special asset protection options within your trust, then you might not name your spouse as the primary beneficiary there. Mm-hmm. But making sure, right, that your spouse or your trust are named as primary and contingent beneficiaries for all your retirement accounts.
Yeah. And then the other one is stock accounts. Those are basically like bank accounts. Anything that doesn't have a beneficiary, you want to retitle. Vehicles are one of those that you can go to the MVA, you can retitle everything to your trust. You can also name a transfer on death beneficiary to your vehicle through the MVA. We will talk to our clients about that kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on how old is the car, how likely are you to still have it, how much of a pain is it. Generally, cars are kind of one we don't really stress too much about.
If you have a car in your estate and you have to go through probate just for a car, like that's not a
usually
big deal.
Yeah, it's not usually a big deal, especially if you have a spouse and your spouse is the beneficiary. There's kind of a loophole.
Yeah, so it can be fairly painless if that's the intent of your trust.
And then I think the last one is your personal property. It's all your stuff. So with that, we do just a general assignment that says all of my stuff goes to my trust. And so that's just another piece of paper. Business interests are the last one. Forgot about.
And so if you own a business and you need to look at your operating agreement for your business and see if it allows you to transfer your property into trust. Mm-hmm. Well done operating agreements, especially with multi-parties, will have that language in there that will allow you to transfer your interest into trust in the event, you're doing this as part of your estate planning.
Right.
And then your operating agreement will have provisions in it that says what happens when your trust inherits and how does that work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a sole member LLC and you don't have an operating agreement, or you purchased an operating agreement online, if you don't have one, you need one. And if you purchase one online, it might not have the provisions needed to allow you to transfer your business to your trust. Right. And that was really specific too on the type of business you own. If you own a law firm like we do, not anyone in Maryland, non-lawyers can't own law firms.
Right.
So, putting that into our trust and having our husbands take over
that would just be bad anyway. But yeah, it's not allowed.
But not allowed either. So taking a look at those, and that's really where you need some help. And is one of the reasons we say DIYing a trust can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah. But if you don't have those provisions for your business interest is part of your probate estate, and that can become very costly to value, and it can become very stressful for your family. And we don't recommend that if it can be avoided.
So anything else for funding?
If you work with any attorney, first of all, if you do any of this yourself online, you're not going to get any funding help. If you work with an attorney, make sure you ask, do you help with funding? How much of this funding do you do? What if we have questions? How do we know we're doing it right? A good estate attorney is going to help you fund it. Some will do it for you. I don't love doing all of it for you because you still physically have to go to the bank. So I'm not 100% sure how they do that, but they should at least give you very clear instructions, and they should guide you and help you along the way, and then make sure that it's being done. So maybe check in periodically to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because we want you to have a trust to meet your goals. If you don't finish up with the funding, it's not going to meet your goals if something happens unexpectedly, and then that totally defeats the purpose. And so we don't want that for your family.
So we don't want to have that conversation with your family of, it was going to be easy, but someone dropped the ball, likely the law firm that you used in helping you get this done.
Mm-hmm.
So so I think that covers funding.
Yep.
No events in September. Our next event will be the end of October.
Yeah, so, October 23rd. Save the date.
If you don't know, we're big football fans here, so we're gonna have some fun with football and trusts. So look out. We'll have some more information about that in the next couple weeks.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your week.
Yep. Have a great week.
Bye.